A warm welcome to our viewers here in Nigeria and around the world. Thanks for joining us this full hour of our coverage of major issues around the world. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Let's bring you up to speed on developments from the Russian invasion of Ukraine the last couple of hours. Russia has requested an urgent meeting of the UN Security Council tomorrow to discuss the situation at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The meeting was requested by Russia's representative to international organizations in Vienna, Mikhail Yulanov. Yulanov accuses Kyiv of creating artificial obstacles and difficulties to a potential International Atomic Energy Agency mission to the nuclear power plant. Meanwhile, the G7 leaders say they remain profoundly concerned by the serious threat posed by Russia's actions around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, saying actions by Russian armed forces are significantly raising the risk of a nuclear accident or incident and endangering the population of Ukraine, neighboring states, and the international community. Leaders reiterate their strongest condemnation of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which they call an unprovoked and unjustified war of aggression. The G7 wants Russia to immediately hand back full control of the power plant to Ukraine. IAEA chief Rafael Mariano Grossi says shelling at Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant violates virtually all 7 nuclear safety and security pillars. Grossi, however, says the shelling has not caused an immediate nuclear safety threat based on information provided by Ukraine. Then the United States has announced it will provide $89 million to Ukraine for removing landmines put in place by Russian forces. About 160,000 mines have been defused in Ukraine in March, but around 5 million Ukrainians still live in areas threatened by bombs planted by the Russians. And now that we're all caught up, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the safety of the Black Sea region would remain under threat while Russia's annexation of Crimea continues. He made the comment after the attack on a Russian air base near seaside resorts in the annexed Crimean Peninsula. Ukraine has not claimed responsibility for the attack, and Moscow says the blast occurred after the detonations. Those who witnessed the attack on Crimea on Tuesday say they heard at least 12 explosions around 3:30 p.m. local time from the Saki air base near Novofedorovka on the west coast of the peninsula. Residential buildings in Novofedorovka were damaged. Affected citizens were offered evacuation to a hostel in Saki. Evacuees also say that they were provided with decent housing conditions and meals. Crimea is a holiday destination for many Russians. It's so far been spared the bombardment and artillery combat that other areas of eastern and southern Ukraine have suffered. The Russian Defense Ministry is adamant, however, the detonation of several aviation ammunition stores had caused an explosion. It initially said no one had been harmed. It also said there had been no attack and no aviation equipment had been damaged. Also reviewing damages in the Kushum settlement on the outskirts of Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia region. Dozens of homes were damaged following a rocket attack earlier today. Following the attacks, residents sifted through the site, inspecting damage done to their homes as authorities work to reconnect electric cables that were also damaged in the attack. Moscow says it does not deliberately target civilians in what it calls its special operation in Ukraine, aimed at preemptively safeguarding its own security against expansion of the NATO military alliance. But staying with today's attacks, the Russian Defense Ministry says Russian forces have destroyed a German-supplied anti-aircraft system in use by Ukrainian forces in the Mykolaiv region. During its daily briefing, the Defense Ministry also said it had shot down 3 Ukrainian warplanes in the Mykolaiv region, as well as 7 HIMARS missiles in the neighboring Kherson. But back in Russia, state security services have searched the house of former state TV journalist Marina Ovsenikova, who in March denounced the war in Ukraine during a live news bulletin on television. Writing on Instagram earlier today, her lawyer, Dmitry Zakitov, said that a criminal case had been opened against her and under Russia's law, criminalizing the spreading of fake information about the Russian army. She is Ukrainian-born and rose to prominence when the then editor on Russia's flagship channel One mounted a protest against the conflict in Ukraine on a nightly news broadcast. She's since been arrested and fined for her continued opposition to Russia's military campaign in several times. I want to bring in the VOA's Anna Chernikova, who's in Kyiv. Anna, great to see you. President Zelensky seems determined to retake Crimea, which has been under Russian annexation since 2014. How realistic is his objective to Ukrainians?
Good evening. Well, Ukraine, from the very first day of full-scale war and from the very first day of war itself that started in 2014, was stating that it is determined to return its territories according to the internationally recognized borders. So in Ukraine, and Ukrainian officials have already confirmed it a couple of times, that Ukraine is determined to return all the territories. However, and this is basically goes in line with what President Zelensky said recently regarding Crimea, that everything started with Crimea and should be finished with its liberation. Ukraine, of course, is determined because it's a very important region, and the safety of this region is even more important because while Russia is controlling the peninsula is a certain, basically, it is a military base. So, and of course, it's a great threat for Ukraine and a great threat for the Black Sea region in particular. So, I guess this is kind of understandable why Ukraine is, is looking forward to it, because first of all, this is Ukrainian territory under all the international documents and recognized internationally, and secondly, it's about safety of the region.
But it is being controlled by Russia, isn't it?
Yes, it is controlled by Russia. It was annexed in 2014.
Indeed, but there's been no claim of responsibility on the attacks on Crimea. The Ukrainian government still not responding to that. Russia already blames Ukraine. Is there some truth there? Is Russia right that Ukrainian forces were behind the attacks on the airbase in Crimea?
Well, taking into consideration that this is the main air base in Crimea, and this is the air base, the main air base which is involved in this war, I would remind that Russia is using this particular air base for attacks on the south regions of Ukraine, and definitely it's it's very let's say very interesting coincidence that this happens in this particular moment, and it happens in general at this particular air base. Ukrainian officials have not confirmed, neither confirmed nor said that this is this was not done by the Ukrainians. However, Ukrainian officials said that Kyiv is not responsible for that. But it was not a direct, speech by the official that Kyiv has nothing to do with this. They did not confirm. So it's difficult to say, but of course we should follow the official announcements, and we cannot independently confirm if if it was done by the Ukrainian forces or not. Even more, of course, we understand that it could be done differently. So there are different ways of doing this. It could be done from the inside. It could be done from the outside. So for the moment, we don't have confirmation. But of course, we all understand that this is a very, if this is a coincidence, it's pretty much in time. And of course, it's quite a positive coincidence for Ukraine. I think that, and here inside the country, and a lot of sources and experts are talking about this. And of course, there are different ideas about what it could be. Again, official confirmation we don't have. If we analyze it and look at it, of course, it looks like quite a great, action for Ukraine in terms of this war in general and the future of this war. And we also can see that the military, the main hotspot now is moving from Donbas to Kherson region to the south. So it all goes basically in line. Unfortunately, I cannot confirm, again, according to all the official statements, but we will see how all this will, evolve, because it looks like this is not the only, accident that might happen in the following weeks or months.
Yeah, and Crimea had been annexed since 2014, and no Ukrainian leader had said anything about it then. I remember the then U.S. President Barack Obama did say, did react, to Russia annexing Crimea. So would it be a major victory for President Zelensky if he could retake Crimea under the guise of this war?
I think that for any president, and considering Mr. Zelensky is an acting president, it would be a great geopolitical victory, a great national victory, of course. It's important to understand that since 2014, Ukraine is under the war, and since 2014, Ukraine has been, Russia has taken the land from Ukraine, and Crimea is a very rich land. It's touristic place, a very popular touristic destination, and it was one of the main touristic destinations in Ukraine. So it's a great economic loss for Ukraine. Also, this is a region, the winery region, so a lot of production. It's the warmest part of the country. So economically, it was a great loss. It was a great hit for Ukraine. This is one thing. Another thing, of course, geopolitically, and I mean, it's just unprecedented what happened, because it's a huge territory. If we look at it, it has a lot of resources in there. So for President Zelensky, as for any president of Ukraine, it would be definitely a great political victory and a great, I will just repeat myself, national victory, because of all these points that I mentioned already.
There is great concern over the safety in Zaporizhzhia, which is where Europe's largest nuclear plant is located. Following the attacks on Saturday, the IAEA wants to inspect it, as given its importance. What's stopping the inspectors from getting to Zaporizhzhia?
The plant, unfortunately, is currently under Russian control, and Russian side do not allow anyone to get in. We only know that Rosatom, which is Russian energy atomic agency, is there, and representatives of this organization are kind of controlling all the processes which are happening. Ukrainian workers are kept there as hostages for the moment. So Russia has full responsibility of either providing access or not, because Ukrainian side, of course, supporting this idea that it should be international control, because Ukraine also cannot access the site. And unfortunately, a lot of damages have been done already by Russian shootings of the site. And we know for the moment that a couple of lines were damaged and are not operating. So it's only one power line is now operating. And if this one is cut, for instance, then generators would come in action. And if generators come in action, then we only can hope that these generators can actually keep the plant going, because otherwise it could be, it will be a catastrophic effect, not only for Ukraine, but for quite a huge territory, and Europe including.
Yeah, very understandably. And there were more attacks also in Mykolaiv, Zaporizhzhia, and Marinet. What's the update from these areas?
The main attack that we experienced over the night in Ukraine was attack at Dnipropetrovsk region. Unfortunately, civilian areas were hit, and a lot of civilians suffered. We know that a couple of residential areas were under attack. For the moment, 13 casualties are confirmed, so 13 people dead and 11 injured. This is what we know for the moment, but of course we understand that numbers could change. If we talk about Mykolaiv is one of the most shelled areas for the moment in general. So, of course, Donbas has the same picture, but Mykolaiv in the south is suffering very much. Again, residential areas mostly, and we hear about a lot of damages of the farmer fields as well, because this is a region with a lot of farming territories. And if we look in general at the front line, we can definitely see that in the south, the main hotspot is moving now to the south, but still we should not forget about Donbas, particularly about Pisky region, because Ukrainian officials, military officials, describe what's happening in Donbas in Pisky region as hell on the earth. And it's hell for both sides, for Ukrainian army and for Russian army, because very heavy fightings are happening. We know that Ukrainian army managed to keep the front line unchanged, and Russian forces did not manage to advance. At least, if we look at the front line as a whole, in some areas Ukrainians advance, in some areas Russian forces also have certain advances, but this is not something that change front line. Let's say any visibly. So I should say that Mykolaiv, Dnipropetrovsk regions and Kharkiv region also are some regions under the most shelling for the moment.
Well, Anna, continue to stay safe in Kyiv. Keep us updated on developments there. Thanks again.
Thank you.
The U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is in Latvia, arriving yesterday for a two-day visit. During his meeting with Prime Minister Krišjānis Kariņš in Riga, he said the U.S. will keep working closely with NATO partners to support Ukraine and neighboring countries, adding that the U.S. would enhance its presence in the region and intensify training with Baltic allies. NATO and European partner Latvia plan to gradually raise its defense budget to 2.5% gross domestic product by 2025 from around 2% now, as a boost security after its neighbor Russia sent troops to Ukraine in February.
The outcome of Russian invasion of Ukraine must have only one result, which means Russia must lose and Ukraine must win. And I heard some people maybe sometimes telling we shall not allow Ukrainians to lose. No, no, no. It's too less. Ukraine must win, because if Ukraine is not winning this war with our assistance, then earlier or later the stress will come and the war might come at our borders, and we don't want that. So Ukrainians are fighting now our war. Unfortunately, Russians are doing this together with Belarus, and we must use all the means, economic, social, diplomatic, political and military, to stop this aggressor.
And NATO is strengthening its forward defenses and enhancing its battle groups in the eastern part of the alliance up to brigade level. The United States is also enhancing its presence along the alliance's east, and we will maintain a persistent and rotational presence in the Baltics, including Latvia. So let's be clear. We seek no confrontation and pose no threat to Russia. Our updated posture simply reflects our ongoing and solemn commitment to Article 5. An attack on one NATO ally is an attack on every NATO ally.
Back in the United States, President Joe Biden on Tuesday signed documents endorsing Finland and Sweden's accession to NATO, a most significant expansion of the military alliance since the 1990s as a response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. President Biden signed the U.S. instrument of ratification, welcoming the two countries, and the final step for the endorsement by the United States.